Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this video. My name is Abdelrhaman Hazem and I am gonna speak about Ajax. Ajax is rapidly becoming an integral part of several websites. Several well-established brands online now use Ajax to handle their web applications because it provides better interactivity to their users. This is due to the fact that implementing Ajax on a website is easy, and it doesn't require a page to reload for a dynamic content on a web page. Now, most of us are wondering how Ajax works and what is it in particular. So let's take a look at how you can use Ajax with JavaScript to build dynamic web applications. But before we look at Ajax, let us talk about how a browser gets information to display a page. When a browser requests a page from a website, the browser in your machine is acting as a client. The website is being delivered through a machine that is serving up the information. So we call that a server. When you ask for a page, the client makes a request to the server and the server returns a page. Sometimes when you are looking at a page, you may want to ask for some additional information from the server. Say for example that your page has thumbnails for a photo album, and perhaps the album has more thumbnails you can see in the current view. Without Ajax, if you want to see more thumbnails, you would have to make a request back to the server, and it would send you a whole new page with additional thumbnails. That means the server ends up sending a lot of information that you don't really need all over again. But with Ajax server, it doesn't have to send you the whole page, it only sends the pieces you need. In this case, the new thumbnails. So how does that work? Ajax is not a single technology, but it's a group of technologies working together to make that happen. Technically, Ajax stands for Asynchronous, JavaScript and XML. That's a quite mouthful, so let's break that down piece by piece. Asynchronous in Ajax means that the client can request new pieces of information from the server at any time. It doesn't have to wait for a page to reload or a new request. It can be triggered by an event like clicking on a button, hovering over an image or whatever. The J in Ajax it stands for JavaScript. Now JavaScript is where all this magic takes place. It handles the events that trigger a new request, makes the request for new data to the server, and takes care of updating only the part of the document that needs to change. JavaScript talks to the server through a set of programming methods called an API, which we're gonna talk about it later, and it uses what's called an XHR or XML HTTP request. This is where the X in Ajax comes from. The XHR API lets the browser send data from a server, and this can be a bit confusing because a lot of people thinking of XML as a language used to describe data that's a lot like HTML. But sometimes people assume that the X and Ajax means that data from an Ajax request has to be in XML, but the data that gets transferred to and from the server can be in any format, and it is usually either a text file HTML or a JavaScript object like JSON. So Ajax is really just a fancy term for a technology lets you build pages that update without requiring a page reload. And JavaScript does most of the heavy lifting with Ajax, and it uses the XHR API to handle the communication between the client and the server. Now, we have defined this new concept We have mentioned that Ajax is a group of technologies. It is not a programming language or a tool. It's a new concept with a client-side script that communicates to and from a server without the need for a postback or a complete page refresh. Now, we have mentioned something called API. Connectivity is an amazing thing. By now, we are all used to the instant connectivity that puts the world at our fingertips. From desktops or devices, we can purchase, post, pin, and pick anything, anywhere. We are connected to the world, and we are connected to each other like never before. But how does it happen? How does data get from here to there? How do different devices and applications connect with each other to allow us to place an order, or make a reservation, or book a flight with just a few tips or clicks in the computer? The unsung hero of our connected world is the Application Programming Interface, or API. It is the engine under the hood, and it is behind the scenes that we take for granted. But it is what makes possible all the interactivity we have come to expect and rely upon. But exactly what is an API? Well, it is a question everyone asks. Okay, not really, but I'm glad you did. There's a lot of definitions out there, but to speak plainly, an API is the messenger that takes requests and tells a system what you want to do, and then returns the response back to you. To give you a familiar example of an API, you can think of a situation that you are sitting in a restaurant at the table with a menu of choices to order from, and the kitchen is the part of the system which will prepare your order. Now, what is missing is the critical link to communicate your order to the kitchen and deliver your order back to your table again. So, the missing critical link here is an API. We can call an API in this case a waiter in the restaurant. Now, the waiter is the messenger that takes your request or order and tells the system, in this case the kitchen, what to do, and then delivers the response back to you, in this case the food. Now that we have whetted your appetite, let us apply this to a real API example. You are probably familiar with the process of searching for airline flights online. Just like at a restaurant, you have a menu of options. You have to choose from a drop-down menu. In this case, you choose a departure city and a date of departure, and you have to choose also the return city and date. You can also allocate a cabin class and other variables. In order to book your flight, you interact with the airline's website to access the airline's database, to see if any seats are available on those dates and what the cost might be based on certain variables. But what if you are not using the airline website, which has direct access to the information? What if you are using an online travel service that aggregates information from many different airlines? The travel service interacts with the airline's API, and the API is the interface that, like your helpful waiter, can be asked by the online travel service to get information from the airline system over the internet to book seats. Choose meal preference on the plane or package options. It's also then takes the airline's response to your request and delivers it right back to the online travel service, which then shows it to you. So now you can see that it is API that makes it possible for us. all to use travel sites. The same goes for all interactions between applications, data, and devices. They all have APIs that allow computers to operate them, and that's why ultimately creates connectivity. Now, back to Ajax. Ajax mainly uses API. All thanks to Ajax, the browsing of the internet has become very fast. We can describe it by the speed of thought. Now, there's many reasons why to use Ajax. We have a very responsive applications or websites online that uses Ajax, and they also provide better interactivity and easier navigation and compatibility, and also there's a lot of brands and major websites they are using Ajax. But there's some disadvantages in Ajax technology. The back button and fresh button are rendered useless, meaning that if you click on the back or refresh button, that would take you to an entirely different web page, or it will take you to the same page that you have seen when you started processing. There's a new technologies now, and there's the technology called JSON they have developed to get over these disadvantages and issues. And there's also a new concept called WPI. It is still developing, and it is only in the research field until now. Now let us talk about some of the major websites with Ajax. We have Google Maps and Google Gmail or Google Mail, which is called Gmail, and also Twitter. To give you a live example on how Ajax work, this is my Twitter account. In the home page you will see the new tweets. Now this page is the latest page I have came across. As you can see in the top, there's four new tweets. So instead of doing a refresh for the whole page to get those new tweets, it will pop up in the top of the home page that easily without needing to refresh the whole page. So the server only requested those new tweets and showed it to you. Well, this is the finish of our presentation. Thank you. If you find it helpful, please tell me on my account on Twitter, and if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer on those questions. Thank you all. Until next time.